Hey guys, and welcome back to Down Tune Dissection. This week I have Chris Doman back, and we talked about three new singles. Some of them just dropped, and some of them have been around for a little bit, but we wanted to get around to them, give our thoughts and opinions. We're going to talk a little bit of Killswitch, talk a little bit of As I Lay Dying, and then of course Slipknot. You got to talk about it. There's so much going on there. There's a lot of drama, and Chris and I definitely get into it, so go ahead and give it a listen.
What'd the devil give you for your soul, Tommy?
Well, they taught me to play this here guitar real good.
Oh, son, for that you traded your everlasting soul?
Well, I wouldn't use it.
Welcome back, Chris. How have you been?
Oh, I've been just dandy, man. I'm always happy to come on this show and talk about metal because isn't metal just the best?
You know what? Actually, it is. It's my favorite genre, man, and that is why we are here because, it's just so good. And we have three singles that have been, one of them dropped, and we were like, oh, should we talk about it? And I was like, okay, we can get around to it, but I was kind of waiting for the right time. And then another single dropped. I was like, okay, let me see if I can find one more interesting single for us to talk about. And then next thing I know, I hear tell that Killswitch Engage is about to come back with another album. Like, well, I guess I know what I'm waiting for because sure enough. Now, I will say I'm a little pissed. For some reason, they had to drop it to the Elite and we're like, oh, it's only going to be on Sirius XM radio that we're going to release our single. I mean, does anybody really listen to Sirius XM? I don't really think so.
No.
I think your true fans are listening to like Spotify and Apple Music or YouTube or
okay. So in my folks' vehicles, when they got some new vehicles, they had Sirius XM, and sure, sometimes they pop on some of that stuff, but yeah, it's just radio in general. I hate saying this, radio in general is just dying out.
It really is. It really is.
To me, it just feels like they're getting more and more desperate to even attempt to hold on to what they used to have. At least that's just the way that I have been perceiving it.
No, I 100% agree. I think that's why there was this little deal with, hey, I bet we can get some extra money somehow, some way by cutting a deal with Sirius to drop it there first. And the people that are hearing it are like dads on their way to work. So I really don't know if that was the best way to generate excitement for your first album back in
3 years, yeah, because four years. Disarm the Descent was 2015. Or was that the name of their 2012 record?
I think I can tell you because, yeah, you're right. 2015. It was Incarnate.
Okay.
It was Incarnate. Yeah. And
Incarnate.
Disarm the Descent was
the 2012 record.
Right, correct.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, when it comes down to it, finally, we got through the stupid one day it's going to only be on Sirius thing. I'm not going to lie. I definitely listened to someone that recorded it and put it on YouTube because I couldn't wait. And I was like, okay, this sounds good, but it was not very good quality. So I was like, I'm only going to listen to it the once, and then I'm going to give it my fair, honest appraisal once I can listen to a good quality version. And it dropped the next day. And oh my goodness, I freaking love this track, dude. Oh my goodness. It is just... Now, we were talking about this just before we got on the podcast, and you expressed a little surprise because I have not been some diehard Killswitch fan over the years. I don't have a ton of experience with them, and mostly the music that I've known was, I think, really their popular years were those Howard Jones years. But
yeah.
I'm really starting to think that I'm more of a Jesse Leach fan as far as just the energy that he brings to these lyrics and the absolute, he has that tormented, tortured sound, and it just feels harsher, more raw, less poppy. It feels real, fucking metalcore. That's what it feels like to me.
Okay, so Ryan, I hate to get all hipster on you, but we're talking about arguably the founders of East Coast modern day metalcore. I mean, like Killswitch Engage. I honest to God, I've been a fan of them since. Oh God, crap! Which record was it? I believe it was As Daylight Dies. There we go. I've been a fan of these guys for well over a decade. I really love both eras. Well, technically, the 3 eras of their career, which was very early when Jesse was first there, then the Howard years when they just blew up, and then nowadays where they're still on top. They're still that band that is just reinventing themselves over and over and over again. And like, one thing I'll tell you this right now, where you're getting this passion for Jesse's just raw emotional energy. Honestly, while the production value on the first 2 records, especially Alive or Just Breathing, aren't as strong as what you'd hear on like the modern day stuff, you really should go back and listen to it, man. That's some of the best metal songwriting, like popular metal songwriting I've heard in a long effing time.
I mean, when you're basically the band responsible for bringing this type of music to an entire generation, I think that there's something to be said. Yeah, it may not be as hard as a lot of the stuff that's out there today, but that's kind of the point, because they were just breaking into that scene and they were just bringing this new sound that people weren't used to. Because I do remember, hearing different songs. Again, I think it probably would have been like back end of Leach, forward end of Jones coming on. But since then, I've definitely gone back and listened to some of the big songs, and I've sort of been working my way backwards through it, listening to entire albums to discover new songs that I've never heard from them before. And it's a fun trip. I've really been enjoying exploring more of the Killswitch Engage, because I was more of the person, I was like, oh, okay, I know who they are and I know big songs by them, but I never got to the point where I was like, I need to consume everything Killswitch Engage. But this song, and I think that's what's kind of cool about them, is this song, like you said, it's a reinvention. With Incarnate, having gone back and listened to it and kind of read up on it, a lot of people say, oh, it's like a very dark, sludgy, almost like slow and depressing sort of album, and that captures a really interesting emotional snapshot. But what's nice about this first song off of Atonement, which is Unleashed, this single Unleashed, just, it's anthemic. It's a great opening track for this upcoming album, and I really like how he switches so naturally from the raw screams into his cleans that are just like, he's obviously been at this for a while, because it's like a masterclass. It's crazy. It's this. I'm loving exploring a band that I knew existed but never really paid much attention to, and I'm glad that I'm starting to pay attention to them now after all these years.
I'm glad of that too. Although now, and again, not to be a hipster here, but as I was listening to this song, I listened to it at the gym. Best place to listen to it, of course. I couldn't help but notice something very, very obvious. Now, the reason that Jesse wound up coming back to Killswitch was essentially because of a 2011 release called Times of Grace. So they had it, basically the members of Killswitch had a side project with Jesse called Times of Grace.
Right.
And the album was like Confessions of a Broken Man. And if you listen to that record, especially on the big single, Strength in Numbers, these two songs are very reminiscent of each other. Like they're kind of like parallel tracks, and I don't mean that in a bad way. It's just, it gave me those vibes of that sort of sludgier, more time signature focused, more swing focused almost. And again, A little bit of homework for you, but it's a great record, and you really should check that out. But I think you'll see what I'm talking about once you give that thing a listen.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'll have to look into that because I think that'll be it. That'll be good to look at the correlation as to where they were with the whole 20, basically him coming back and then up to the point where they are now into this. Okay, it's 2019. We're going to try something new, because if you've been around since 1999, 20 years at this point, you're going to have to change things up. No one's going to want to continue to hear the same sound. And I like to see that they're going to have a track on this album that will feature Howard Jones. That's really actually pretty exciting. I think that's really interesting.
Hell yeah.
To hear something new between the two of them. So all in all, I like the single. It sounds like you've appreciated it.
Oh, yes.
And we're both looking forward to this album. So all in all, if you guys haven't checked out the new single for Atonement called Unleashed, I highly, highly recommend it. And so that brings us to, speaking of metalcore bands that have been around for a while, have a big name, and have been through turmoil of one kind or another, we now come to a single that's been out for a couple months now, but we gave it our due and listening to it and kind of waiting to see the direction that the band was going to take. And now we're able to come out and say, Redefined by As I Lay Dying. I'm actually going to throw this to Chris first because I want to hear his thoughts as far as bringing back a controversial figure in the world of metal and saying, okay, we're going to now drop, because they had a single not too long ago, but this is
My Own Grave,
presumably leading into a full-length album, and that's that's a big step, I think.
It is. Okay. So look, you guys know that I usually try to be on the side of history when it comes to people who make horrible effing mistakes. It would be like if Bryan Singer were still attached to that Red Sonja project that he's no longer attached to. It would be like if Kevin Spacey had a new big movie coming out. I mean, look, there's no getting around it. Tim Lambesis messed up badly. He messed up real badly. I'm not going to be a complete jerk and say that what he did was completely unforgivable, because look, sometimes mental illness is a real thing. And if the history books really do show that that's really what it just came down to, he was just a moment of panic in a case of mental illness, then I can forgive. And it seems like a lot of fans have already started to forgive. I personally am not there yet, though, but I did keep an open mind as I listened to the track. And like, my thoughts on Tim and the track are two completely different things. Because the track itself, it's not bad. Because let's keep in mind, we now have the quote unquote the big lineup. We have Tim Lambesis, Nick Hippa, Phil Scroso, however the hell he pronounces his last name. Sorry, Phil. Josh Gilbert and Jordan Mancino, one of the best effing drummers of the entire metalcore scene. And I was expecting to hear this catchy, technical, high energy song, and that's not what I got. I got basically a sort of a standard gent track that Periphery's laughing at. So I mean, look, and that's not to say like anybody sounds bad. I mean, no, the drums are are again very technical, kind of crazy in certain parts, and I like that. You know, the guitar work is really good. Uh, honestly, I don't think Josh Gilbert has ever sounded better on the clean vocals. But you know, and again, Tim has not lost a step in his vocals either. But the song itself just doesn't have the energy of something like a Nothing Left, Sound of Truth, or even something like oh crap, what's the name of it? Only through struggle. There we go. Or, you know, 94 Hours, Darkest Nights, like those sort of just very in your face and hard hitting stuff. It's just slowed down, and I kind of wish that they could have picked it up a little bit. But overall, like, it's not a bad song. It just is kind of, it's there. That's my thing.
Right, because in the end, it's all in how the parts come together. And my experience with As I Lay Dying, I've said on previous episodes, and I think it's kind of obvious by some of my favorite bands, I grew up listening to Christian rock and Christian metalcore. That was my entry into it, basically by way of whether it be Thousand Foot Crutch or Pillar or August Burns Red. And in a sense, also, was As I Lay Dying. I mean, these are guys going on tour with Demon Hunter, War of Ages, and other, you know, Suicide Silence and Carnifex, other bands that aren't necessarily Christian. But that's the nice thing about metal, is everybody kind of comes together, whether you have all these satanic lyrics or whether you just have some sort of, you know, Christian motivation behind it. I mean, everybody kind of comes together to support a genre that doesn't make billions on billions on billions like pop music does. I mean, it's more of a team effort in that sense, and to build each other up. So As I Lay Dying, they had good stuff. You know, I enjoyed listening to their albums, but once it was a thing that they didn't really care so much for the Christian scene, which isn't necessarily the worst thing, but I think it leaves a bad taste in the mouth to know that they were going through the motions and they were acting like, oh yeah, we're a nice Christian band, but really they couldn't give a shit. And it just feels disingenuous to the fans. I'd rather you just be like, yeah, that's not what we are anymore. I mean, bands have done that in the past. They would not be the first band to do that. And it's part of changing. It's part of growing up. It's part of being who you are. And just be like, yeah, man, that's not who we are. That's not what we do. It's not what we care about anymore. Our message hasn't necessarily changed. It's not like they're, you know, some weird, creepy, shitty band that's just like kill everyone, especially Christians, like F God and all this. They're not trying to ruin any sort of image, but then you hit the controversy and they disappeared. I mean, they went off the map for years. 6 years he was in prison, and, you know, I guess good on As I Lay Dying for not trying to replace him and continue on with the popular name. That does show some sort of togetherness among the band. You know, I do appreciate that, sticking together like that. And now that he's back, I think I can forgive him, but I think that he needs to come out and make a very public statement about, you know, and maybe he has, and maybe I just haven't seen it. I looked around and I didn't really see anything showing that, hey man, I feel really bad. I mean, I'm sure he does because he got caught and he knows it's wrong, but I'd like to see, like, even if it's through music, like, I know I've gone through some shit that, and Redefined sort of seemed to get that message across, but I'd like to see more of that, I guess, in the future. Like, let that be a continuing trend of, I, as one man, realize, as the front man of this band that founded this band, that I have taken them in some dubious directions and taken my life in some dubious directions, and that's not who I am anymore. I've had time for reflection and time for change, because people idolize these people. You know, if you're a famous metalcore band, yeah, sure, you may not have the exposure that Cardi B does, with her, all the crazy shit that she's getting herself into. But still, like, an example is an example. There are still people that are watching what you're doing, especially when you've been around since 2000, leading the charge right there along with bands like Killswitch. So when it comes to this track, I'm pretty meh on it. It's not horrible. It's still fun to listen to. I still enjoy it. And, you know, it's definitely like I'm kind of banging my head along with it at certain parts. And like you said, the band individually all sounds really good, but it's just a matter of how do the parts come together and what is there to get me excited about it. So if this is like, you know, one track out of 12 on the album and the rest of the album kicks ass, or even the majority of the album kicks ass, that's fine. You know, it's really not the end of the world. But if this is one single and then they don't put out a full album for like a year, then you're kind of like, oh, what are you guys doing? Because I want to get back into you. I want to enjoy
and
the transformation, but I'm just not feeling it because it feels like we're just rehashing old music.
And my like main thing I'm scared of is I don't want this to turn into Atreyu.
Yeah.
Now, you know,
yeah, about that.
And you know, and his thing. Literally, one of my favorite bands of all time is Atreyu, and they from 2002 to 2009, they just pumped out great record after great record after. Still really solid. You know, I think Lead Sails Paper Anchor gets a lot more crap than it deserves. But, oh my God, Congregation of the Damned is a solid mix of pop rock, but also shit-kicking metalcore in your face, and it's amazing. And then they came out with Long Live in 2015. Also, just like Killswitch Engage. And that was another solid record, which, again, had a great balance of poppy sounding stuff, but then a lot of hard, fast, shit-kicking stuff. And then you listen to the most recent record, and I honestly kind of want to forget it exists.
That shows how much you've listened to it.
In Our Wake, there we go. Yeah, exactly. Like, I've listened to it twice, and I've just been like, oh my God, this is embarrassing. And it just sounds like an Imagine Dragons knockoff. And I'm embarrassed by that. Okay, it's not that bad because there actually is some, like, there are some good tracks, but it's too much of a transition too soon from what they were doing. Because honestly, you know, As I Lay Dying, I'll put it this way, I'll give the record a fair shake when it officially comes out.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
And if Redefined winds up being the worst track on the record, then I'll be satisfied.
That's a good sign, yeah.
Yeah. But if the whole thing seems like Redefined, then I'll just be like, God damn it, another band that fell victim to the Imagine Dragons syndrome. Because first you had Bullet for My Valentine because, oh my God, Gravity was terrible. Anybody who says otherwise, you are lying to yourself and you don't like rock music. And then, you know, you had Atreyu with In Our Wake, and you're just like, oh my God, this is so boring. You know, I'm just a little bummed that a lot of these bands who made their bones in the mid 2000s and for the most part were kicking a lot of ass are just throwing in the towel, it feels like.
Yeah, they're giving up, man, because they get that taste of fame, and then they're like, oh, you know how we could make even more money? What if we just made a bunch? And that's where everyone gets into the whole, like, oh, well, it's selling out, and, like, it's not just going into pop, and, like, I hate to be that guy, because I don't, because if you change who you sound like, or if you change your sound overall, that's great. And adding some poppy elements, I mean, I personally think that when Veil of Maya added clean vocals, they got 10 times better. And that's nothing against deathcore. I just don't think they were as good at the deathcore scene as they are at the more metalcore, even with some poppy vocals thrown in there. I think they embraced that in a better way.
Like when, or as we discussed on the show, when Whitechapel really started to integrate clean vocals, it made them so much more accessible for me. Because again, it's not to crap on deathcore,
Right.
but
some bands are better at it than others. It's as simple as that.
yeah,
And Whitechapel is obviously deathcore staple. Don't get me wrong. I mean, adding the vocals in there, adding the cleans in there, really just allows. Again, go back and listen to our Whitechapel episode if you haven't yet, because we go way more in depth about it. But to summarize, I mean, it's all about the emotion for some very personal subjects that are being touched upon in that album. So that's where it really comes to aid them. But when a band says, no, we're going to embrace a pop sound, like clean vocals don't immediately mean like, oh, we're selling out into a pop sound that will be more enjoyed across a larger audience. It's when you change who your band's identity was all in all, and it's so transparent that your main goal is just to make more money. That's when it gets to be frustrating. So, but there are bands that don't do that. There are bands that have been around for a very long time, like Killswitch Engage, and like the next band we're about to talk about that has been around for so long and
literally
just
25 years.
Not stop. They do not stop. You guys know them as Slipknot, and oh my gosh, it is just, it's really, it kind of defies any sort of definition or description, because Chris and I, guys, we covered when they came out with All Out Life. We talked about that back in, it was in October of 2018.
It was on Halloween Day.
Yes. And we made a reaction video and we were hyped. We're like, yes, new Slipknot. And then nothing happened. And I was like, okay, that's kind of weird. No more news, nothing about it. And then sure enough, there's word of, bands just can't get along. Chris Fenn, one of their percussionists, I mean, there's really no way to know whose side we should be on, but all I'm going to say is what happened was Chris Fenn put a lawsuit up against the rest of the band, and Corey Taylor, I think, in particular, saying, I have not been receiving my due. He had not been getting the amount of money that he had been promised. And essentially, they said, F you, dude, stop dragging our name through the mud and get out of our band. And whether that was the right answer or not, it's what happened. And Slipknot don't let shit like that bother them, because they're still going. They have brought on an as of yet unknown brand new percussionist and released a song called Unsainted. And holy hell, this song is good. It's great. It's awesome. I love it. And the biggest thing for me is my buddy that got me into Slipknot a good while back, he always would he would go on and on about how good Corey Taylor is at clean vocals. And he would always make me watch these acoustic versions of Slipknot songs that Corey Taylor would do for different, interviews and events and stuff like that, unplugged events. And I was like, yeah, I mean, okay, it's good. It's good. Yeah, he's definitely good, but I prefer him when he's, screaming his throat raw. But in this song, oh my goodness, if he doesn't marry the clean vocals with the growling, scratchy, evil, demonic vocals that we're used to, if he doesn't marry the two of those together perfectly, then I don't know what we have here, because listening to it, I mean, Chris Fenn, I don't think he will be missed. I'm sorry, not to be a dick, but I just really don't think that he's not the drummer, he was just a percussionist, easily to an extent replaceable, and they sound just the same as they ever.
Even when the drummer got fired, nobody missed him.
Well, yeah, true, but I could at least see you saying, I mean, and this isn't to shit on percussionists. That's not what I'm getting at. Not even close. Please don't misconstrue what the hell I'm saying. That's not where I'm going with this. I'm just saying, if you're going to stand up against the other 8 band members and say, F you haven't been paying me, like, bro, you're in fucking Slipknot. Stop whining, okay? You're in literally one of the greatest metal bands ever. Like, what is your problem? Like, unless you're getting paid next to nothing, I just don't see the complaint.
Which I mean,
here.
Look, just to play devil's advocate, because
Please
we
do,
don't
'cause
actually.
I'm probably going a little overboard. I mean, obviously, yes, you should get paid what you're supposed to get paid. But.
Yes, but and to be fair, we don't know.
Right.
Now, let's say he actually was being denied his actual dues. That would effing suck.
Yeah, I would be pissed, just like he probably.
So it's tough. This whole situation is just messed up because I actually do really like Chris Fain as a percussionist, and I like what he brought as a vocalist in a lot of the live shows, especially in something like Download 2009 or London 2002, which God, that show's amazing. Disaster Pieces, man. Y'all aren't Slipknot fans until you watch that entire live DVD and just bang your fucking head off. But yeah, it's kind of tough to understand the situation without having the entire information laid out. But unfortunately, it is what it is, and unfortunately, he kind of shot himself in the foot.
Yeah.
So,
and I think that,
sorry, man.
I don't know exactly. I mean, from what I read, he was accusing Corey Taylor and Sean Cran of setting up different like band related businesses in different states that were supposed to be like collecting money for the band or from the band, or in any case, bringing a lawsuit against them that's not going to make the band look good. It's very public, and people are going to be paying attention when I guarantee you all Corey and the rest of the band care about is making another good album. Like, they just want to drop another good album. Yeah. They've been through a lot, over the years. The last thing they want is unnecessary drama. I mean, with Paul Gray, man, they don't need more drama. They really just don't. So when it comes down to it, man, I like this track. I think it's really well done.
Yeah, I suppose I didn't really talk about the track.
Yeah. What were your thoughts on it? Like, does it live up to? Because I will say for the audience that maybe didn't see our video last October, our big thing was it was a return to form in a way. Album 5 being what it was for Paul Gray was a very introspective. I mean, maybe besides The Devil and I mean, it was almost like a restrained sort of album, if you can say such a thing about a Slipknot record. But when we heard All Out Life, we're like, oh shit, like all the stops are pulled. Like, how do these compare in your mind?
Oh, okay. So for some, so first off, we're actually bearing another lead here real quick. Mm-hmm. We haven't mentioned yet the fact that it was actually talked about, I want to say like a month or so ago, that unfortunately All Out Life will not be on the next record.
No, it's like it was its own separate thing at this point.
Which is fine, just sort of like a little reminder of, hey guys, we are doing new shit. Here's a song to prove it. And oh my god, it was great. And that song is still great. I still listen to it all the effing time. And I'm not gonna say I don't like Unsainted, because actually I really do. I like the chorus. I like the production of it, mm-hmm. and I like how intense the verses get. But it's towards the middle of the song in the bridge, like it just. I'll need to listen to it a few more times, but I'm just trying to get that rhythm, especially if that's sort of more the set tone for the record, where they're trying to go with it. Because I'll say this right now, the lyrics, oh baby, we are back. I guess it's just the final execution where I'm not gonna say I'm worried. I'm just
maybe skeptical, or
I'm just a little skeptical.
Right.
But the thing, but also keep in mind, again, I've been a fan since Volume 3, so I, I just want I just want what I was, not what I was promised, but just the vibe that I got from All Out Life and Unsainted to just be like, okay, the band did their thing where they had to just get all their emotions out, and now let's just go back to telling authority, fuck you. Let's just go back to what we miss from the self-titled.
Yeah, man. I actually, that makes a lot of sense. I think that, I still think I definitely like this track a little more. I'm a little more hyped about this track, and that could be because, I'm more okay with Slipknot making it out of the new metal phase and more of into just the standard heavy metal that I think I really appreciate them having. I don't know. When it comes down to it, I'm not the biggest new metal fan. I think is really what it is. Like, it's the new part that doesn't do it for me. So if it's too new, I don't fuck with you. Like, just get out of here. So
I was about to say, Ryan, are you teasing a future episode of the show?
Yeah, maybe. There's just a lot out there. There's a lot of music, and now there's like this whole new metalcore. I mean, it's not a now thing, but it's really just starting to come into the light, I guess. I mean, things obviously exist for like at least 50 fucking years before someone figures out that it exists with music. But, everyone's like, oh, I heard it way before you. You didn't know new metalcore has existed for so many years? And it's like, no, you're right. I didn't know, but I'm finding out about it now, and I have feelings.
Sure, I was aware of it, but that doesn't make it good.
No, exactly.
And hell, I'm not gonna lie. I had an idea for that kind of band back in 2010, and it wasn't a good idea back then either. So
you heard it here first. Don't start a new metalcore band because Chris Doman said it's not the right way to go. But no, man, I'm with you insofar as while I like the track a decent amount more than you, I'm pretty freaking hyped about it. I'll have it on repeat and all of this.
Oh yeah.
I'm on the same page as far as like we still need to see how the rest of We Are Not Your Kind is going to be, because that is really what's going to matter. Like, all in all, you can have one good song, but that's not an album. That's just the one good song. We need the band to come together, kick the shit out of us like they did with the Gray Chapter. But I'm feeling, I do agree that All Out Life was a nice return to form, even if like maybe it did kind of strut the line of maybe not being as like put together. It definitely had that like dissonant raw sound, which can be fun, but I'd like to really see how an entire album can come together from these guys. Yeah. So with that, man, I mean, there's so much new music coming out. I am basically in metalcore fan heaven. Ryan is happy. That's what I'll say. Ryan is happy. But Chris,
all that would need to come out is a Lamb of God record, and then we'll just both be jizzing all over the place.
Yeah. That we keep teasing it. We're gonna someday stop being pieces of shit and actually have a Lamb of God episode. At least tackle one or two of their records. Yeah, Chris is celebrating.
I would love to talk really talk in depth about my favorite show I ever attended. But
I don't think we're gonna let you. Never mind. On second thought,
that's all right.
No, I'm just kidding, man. Thank you so much for coming back on the show. You're gonna be back and back and back and back again. I mean, basically at this point, it's a revolving door of Chris. So I hope y'all like him. I don't know, like hopefully he's not too annoying. But
nah.
In the meantime, Chris, after I just insulted you, where can the good kids find you?
You guys can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, Stardust, Letterboxd, and Discord at Skywalker Dome. And you guys can follow this very channel on Twitter and Instagram at D2A Channel. And please, guys, go like our Facebook page. And if you want to support this show on Anchor, or you can support our other show, the Who Cares Anyway podcast, hosted by me, also on Anchor, and wherever you get your favorite podcasts. And also, Nico and I, speaking of movies and whatnot, Nico and I just made our debut as Team Dedicated Art in the Multiplex Fandom Fight Summer Series Tournament. How did we do? Well, we're the number 8 seed against the number 1 seed. But I think I might surprise you.
Yeah, there's a lot of fun stuff going on in the YouTube sphere. I mean, last night's episode of Who Cares Anyway, that was a really good one. You, me, and Case, we had a blast. So, guys, definitely go back and check that one out. It was a lot of fun. And you guys can find me on Twitter at Clan McClellan, on Instagram at Vintage Sights and Sounds. And we'll be back next week with some sort of metal or another. I mean, just let us know in the comments what you guys are interested in hearing us yap about, because I'd love to hear some ideas and really get into maybe even some new music that I've never heard before, because that's what makes this fun. Like, I love exploring new music. So let me know. And until next time, guys, see you in the pit.